Okay, moving on to section 2. So, just a bit about what you need to know. We're trying to sort of cut through all the noise a little bit in this section and just get to the core of what's important, especially as it relates to small business. So, a very brief introduction to SEO. I could spend a very long time talking about this topic, but um, just in general, and how it relates to you know, things now. It's important to remember that it's not black magic or a secret science. Um, but then again, what on earth is it in 2017, 2018, and beyond? And it has changed. It's changed a lot in the last 5 or 10 years. So this is where I think a lot of the confusion comes from. So what is it? Is it market research, keyword research? Is it technical optimization work behind the scenes, code and meta tags and things like that? Is it copywriting, on-site stuff, and great content? Is it building links and authority from other sites? Is it website usability and great user experience that's loads fast and is mobile friendly? Is it presenting a highly positive and credible image to potential customers? Well, the answer is quite simple: yes to all of the above. SEO, in its basic sense, is search engine optimization, which is, in my opinion, making your website attractive and visible in search engines, so it can be found and accessed, and therefore it's a combination of all of these things. And if you break it down a little bit, so I mean, there is three pillars really. I mean, it's kind of, there's technical, as we kind of said, under the hood type stuff. There's off page, which is the link building and citations and things like that. There's on page, which is the stuff you can do with content, optimizing for keywords, things like that. And then there's kind of this sweet spot in the middle where you nail all three things right, and you get the best benefit from it. You get the best effect from SEO. So with all that in mind, what will we focus on today? So we're trying to break this down into what's most relevant and what's most appropriate for businesses. So number one, your website. I mean, pretty much every business has a website these days. If you don't, get one. So it's not important. It's not just enough anymore, I should say, to have a website. It needs to be well structured, fast, mobile friendly. That stuff is essential these days. On-page basic optimization is important. So we're going to cover things like page tags, meta descriptions, just the real stuff that you need to be ticking off to sort of even have a chance to get anywhere. We'll talk about number 2, which is local SEO. This is a big one, especially for small or local businesses. Need to consider what this means. So you get a lot of questions about this. And how to sort of rank in those map listings that come up in Google. So it's things like authority building, it's links, which are still highly correlated with strong search engine results. It's about building credibility, case studies, portfolios, reviews, testimonials, things like that to help you get the deal over the line, and to really have that social proof aspect feeding your business. And then lastly, it's content and content marketing. So valuable, timely content can put you in front of a wider audience and help influence why a customer should choose you. So we're going to focus on those 3 key areas, which should be within reach of most people. Before we dig into that, just a little bit about how people search. So it's kind of broken down into one of 3 main ways. Most people will go to a search engine, so Google, or there are others, believe it or not, Yahoo, Bing, some of the smaller search engines. 94% of Australians in particular use Google as their preferred search engine. I think worldwide, last count, it was over 90% still use Google. So we're going to focus a lot of our attention on that today. Sometimes people will just type the web address directly into the browser, if you know what that is. And they'll sometimes use a directory. So that could be an aggregate type site. It could be a a TripAdvisor or Yelp or that kind of that kind of review type vertical, really focused vertical site. Um, and and yeah, it's important to consider all this as well. That um, text and voice. So there's search, and even when we talk search engines, search is changing. Recently over 20% of searches on Google in the US are now voice searches. This is because of, I guess, wearables, because of mobile phones, because of voice search actually getting better. I mean, I don't know if you guys do it, but I do quite a lot these days. Just if it's easier to ask something, I'll do that instead of typing it. And I think that's actually only going to, you'd say that could only increase as Alexa, Google Home, those sort of products start becoming a bit more mainstream and widely used. So there's just some stats to back that up. So we were looking at search market share in Australia, which is around 94% Google. That data is from GS.stat counter, which you can look up online. It's live and updated. It's worth spending a little bit of time on understanding how customers find you, and I won't go too far into this, but this great graphic from HubSpot really summarizes it well, just around the buyer's journey. So understanding that people don't just type something in, make a purchase straight away. There's a process behind it. It's usually a bit of a stepped process behind it. So they'll typically go through an awareness stage. So they'll sort of be aware that they have a problem, like my car needs servicing or something like that. They'll then sort of move forward into a consideration stage. And in terms of, I guess, what people might be searching for and how that affects SEO, we might see that change from problem-based keywords to more solution-type keywords. I mean, in the case of the car, I mean, maybe people would try to consider it, fixing it themselves, or they might start looking into sort of how-to videos, things like that, or they might be getting a bit more specific. Then sort of by that stage, by the time they get to the decision stage, or Google refers to it as ZMOT, so zero moment of truth, where they actually could have want to make that commitment to either book an appointment or purchase or something like that. They may have already bookmarked a few pages, scribbled a few things down, done some comparisons, and then by that stage they might be looking for branded keywords. They might already have made up their mind and they're just trying to seal the deal. So it's understanding a bit around that process and how that works. It's very important. I'll skip past this video. I'm not going to play it today. You can look it up on YouTube. It's from Matt Cutts, Google's former head of web spam. Great intro into just basically how Google works, which I think is quite illuminating. Very briefly, a bit about Google's algorithm as well. Again, this is a bit technical, but I mean the main thing to understand here is the way Google looks at and ranks websites. It's based on a series of conditions. I mean, it's based on roughly over 200 criteria in response to what users are searching for. It performs if you search for fixing car, I need to my car is broken or whatever. Google in a split second takes those keywords. It looks at its database of all the websites that are on the web, that its catalog, and it serves up a page of results which it thinks is most appropriate to your search. Changes to Google's algorithm essentially are basically improvements to their search process, so the criteria that they tick off. It's typically there's heaps of these little changes that go on behind the scenes, and a lot of them don't get noticed. There are some larger ones which are kind of summarized here. So I mean, panda, penguin, hummingbird are some of the larger ones. Pigeon was an update that gave a much sort of heavier focus to local signals as context for search. There was a mobile friendly update in 2015, which was called some people call it Mobilegeddon, because Google started to give favor to websites that had a mobile friendly version, and they started to show that. Rank Brain was an AI based update. Yeah, there's just been a lot, and I mean what the whole goal of these updates are, I mean, is really to try and give you better quality search results for what you're looking for what you're trying to find. So it's cutting down on spam. It's trying to sort of crack down on people manipulating the search engines, using techniques, the dodgy techniques to try and rank and things like that. It's trying to really cut through all that and get to the websites that really deserve to be in those positions. I mean, that's Google's goal in all of this. And just quickly, as we still get asked this a lot, what's the difference between SEO, organic organic rankings, and the paid ads, which are AdWords in Google's case. So I mean, if on a typical search page, I mean, this is how it currently looks. You will see, depending on what you're searching, you might see some ads. They are represented usually up to 4 places up the top, with a little ad box beside it, which is getting fainter and fainter over the years. So that's a whole different topic. But yeah, those first 4 results are paid ads, and those are determined from Google based on a whole separate system of bidding and cost per click type auctions, which you can certainly do as well. And I mean, and definitely, a well-rounded sort of strategy is probably a combination of SEO and paid ads to sort of cover some of that off, because you can see even in this example like how much screen real estate those ads do get, especially on mobile. I mean, you don't actually even see an organic listing until you scroll down the page. So, but then again, some people do scroll just past the ads. So, I mean, people are savvy to what they are, and they will go straight to the organic results. That does happen. In this example, we've only got 1 organic listing there, but I mean, as we said earlier, up to 10 results, up to 10 organic results appear on the page, and then there's other page 2 and page 3 as well. But I mean, who looks there really? Just quickly, a few industry terms. So I mean, we've touched on some of these already, but I mean, on-page or off-page SEO. So I mean, we've covered that in a bit of detail, but it's basically on-page is the stuff that happens on the website. Off-page is more your links and your external things, which all contribute. White hat and black hat. So I almost mentioned that earlier, but white hat is, I guess, the SEO type stuff that are done within Google's guidelines, within best practice, and sort of done the right way. Black hat, and sometimes you also get what's called grey hat techniques, are, I suppose, ones that are either not approved within Google's guidelines, or they're in a bit of a grey area. There's sometimes suspicion that another algorithm update in future might some of these don't actually go from grey hat to being black hat. Some of the anti-spam updates we've seen around duplicate content and link farms and things like that, those were really black hat techniques. They used to work 10 years ago, don't work now, because Google's identified that they're spammy manipulative tactics. So that's kind of that. So always stay on the white side. PPC we touched on briefly, so it stands for pay per click. Sometimes it's CPC as well, cost per click. Usually refers to search-based paid ads. Backlinks are links from other websites to yours, as opposed to outlinks or links right from your website. SEM is search engine marketing, broadly. I won't cover this too much, but I mean, a lot of people will sort of describe SEM and SEO as separate things. If you really get into it, I mean, SEO is technically a part of SEM, like it's an aspect of it, but people will often use the terms to describe 2 different things. Often people will say SEM to describe paid online marketing, and SEO to describe more the earned stuff. So, moving to the burning question: why is SEO important to my local business? Why do I need to worry about this? I mean, the main thing that I always lead with is that almost everyone is online and mobile these days. As we said earlier, 94% of people use Google to search, not Yellow Pages or other directories, things like that, like they used to. It's all Google. It's all online. And even if you're not actively doing it, if you think it's a fad, it's going to pass, which is not, people are doing it around you. It's happening anyway. People are talking about your business. They're leaving you reviews. We had one example a number of years back now where clients had a some sort of situation happen, and there was a number of media articles written about their business, and they were actually having trouble at the time even ranking for their own name. It was quite generic, and it was yeah, it was just there was the SEO done on the site was really bad, and because when these articles came out, when you search the business name, the first 5 or 6 results you saw were all these articles talking about how bad the business was, not being not having strong SEO in that case. You know, their actual website appeared right at the bottom of the page, which is not the first impression you want. I mean, if you owned a shop front, would you plaster all these bad reviews on the front of your shop, so when people come there, that's the first thing you see? I mean, you wouldn't do it. So, yeah, it's happening anyway. Um, some stats on the mobile. I mean, there's so many of these around, but this is from a Think with Google report quite recently, saying that 85% of smartphone users have searched for local info on their phones. 81% of those have taken action as a result. 40% actually visited the store in person after performing a search, and 35% called the business after searching. So you might have seen there's call phone numbers in search results these days. That's one way to do it. But even if they get to your website, they'll typically call or be looking up your address. People are looking for local info. The people are mobile. They're out there. They're looking for stuff. Quick case study, a little bit of fun, briefly. But why is SEO important? Talking about Bob the mechanic, going with the car theme. May not be his real name. Just want to have a look at option 1 for Bob. So Bob opens an auto repair business, but he does it in the middle of the desert. His shop is great. He spent a lot on his fit out. He's got very fancy fixtures and signage and some of the latest tools. But because he's in the middle of the desert, nobody's connected to him. Nobody knows he's there. Nobody can find him. So, I mean, that is kind of, what would you expect in that scenario? Option 2, however, Bob opens his workshop on a busy street corner filled with cars. Bob gets seen by people passing by. Bob puts up a big sign to promote his unique 24-hour emergency service. He does a great job. He gets referrals from many happy local businesses and customers in the area. So, I mean, if you just think of those 2 scenarios, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Which one would you choose? It's like that with SEO. You can have a great website, the latest technology, well designed, but if no one's connected to it, no one can find it. It's like having a shop in the desert. It's just a big shiny waste of money, really. So rounding out this section, want to talk a bit about a question we get asked a lot, which is how much does SEO cost? The simple answer is that, well, it depends, which is not a great answer, but it depends. There's a study that we referenced quite recently by Moz, who are great SEO authority online. They surveyed with AYTM over 400 agencies internationally to get a bit of an idea to try and answer this question. They found from this survey that an average monthly SEO retainer was somewhere in US dollars, mind you, between $250 and $500 a month. Around 14% of the sample were charging around that, and then there was a bit of a gap. But the next most common was sort of around $2,500 to $5,000 a month, which was about 11%. So I mean, those 2 tiers kind of made up a big part of the pie there. Um, that's in terms of monthly costs. In per project prices, I mean things range anywhere from $1,000 to $7,500 US. So there's an article on our blog about that. You can read the whole report. But yeah, just to give you an idea, I mean that's kind of a bit of a ballpark. How cheap is too cheap? Well, um, again, um, it depends. But I mean, I think SEO is, to use the old cliche, really a case of you get what you pay for. And it's also worth considering some of the risks of going too cheap. I mean, yes, it might be tempting, but I mean, um, is the company you're using black hat techniques? Is there a risk that you're going to disappear from Google? You might be doing well, but you might disappear from Google in the next algorithm update. Are they using poor quality or duplicated content, which again is not going to do you any good in the long term. Are they good with smaller stuff, but once they get to a certain point, they're going to hit a bit of a plateau. They're not going to be able to grow with your business. It's all stuff to consider. And there are a number of examples of companies who have been penalized. I mean, this is a bit of an older one from 2011, but JCPenney, it's a pretty good example. They tried to manipulate the search engines of Google a bit by posting a lot of links on university websites because the high domain authority pointing back to their website gave them a boost. Um, Google noticed this. They changed it. I mean, one of the downsides obviously is relevancy. It's not relevant. So they actually gave JCPenney a penalty for that. So it does happen even to large companies. There's some others around BMW, Germany, and some pretty big companies too. Interestingly enough, so another survey of small businesses done when you're talking about matching expectations to outputs. That's what agencies are charging, but a lot of businesses expect to pay around $100 a month for SEO services. Based on our experience, and I think based on the average price for agency services too, it's safe to say that it's extremely unlikely that any real benefits will be realized for $100 a month, despite around 38% of businesses in the survey thinking that that was a reasonable price point. You need to really think what work is getting done for $100 a month. I mean, chances are very little. I mean, some of these companies could just be collecting a paycheck each month and doing nothing. But yeah, it's very unrealistic that anyone is actually spending time and effort doing work on your website for $100 a month. And at the back of all this, I mean, we touched on it early, but it's important to ask the question, is the SEO right for my situation? Is it right for my business? And it might not be. We're big proponents of SEO, but if it's not the right solution, it's not the right solution. You need to consider things like your budget, which we've talked about quite a bit. You need to consider your goals, how achievable those are. Give thought to the time frame. I mean, even Google have said in recent videos that a realistic time frame to see any results from SEO is at least in the sort of 4 to 12 months plus sort of area. If you need faster results than that, I mean, there are options like AdWords, pay-per-click ads, display advertising. There's a lot of stuff that's immediate and has you can start realizing effects in a very short space of time. If time is a real factor for you, SEO might not be the best approach. Consider how much competition you have from ads. Consider big competitors, what thare doing. That to use that mountain analogy again, are you climbing to the top of a mountain that's occupied by all these other big brands and competitors? How tough is that climb going to be? Where are you starting from as well? Like, do you already have a website? Are you starting from scratch? Do you have any SEO history, any domain history to lean on and leverage? That can be a factor if you're up against people who've got a much better head start than you, or competitors who've got a much better head start than you. So how I would answer this typically is the basic things that you should be doing, which we're going to cover off shortly. Yes, yes. The baseline stuff, the technical side of it, you know not being lazy with it, just doing the real basics. Yes, you should definitely be doing that. And there are probably, if you can't do that yourself, there are probably a lot of places that can help you with that. The more advanced stuff, it depends. We talked about hitting plateaus. I mean, you might be fine with the type of exposure you're getting right now, but to take it to the next level, you might need a lot more than that. It can depend on your budget. It can depend on all these other factors. So that's a decision you need to make for your business, and it should be netting positive ROI for you, one way or another. We'll leave questions to the end, but that's the end of section 2 for now.